The morning sun reflected off the Atlantic Ocean as I stood in the great room of the Oceanfront property, watching my sister Melissa pace back and forth with her wedding planner, clipboard in hand. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the beach perfectly, white sand stretching in both directions as far as the eye could see. "So if we set up the ceremony here on the upper deck," Melissa gestured dramatically toward the wraparound balcony, "and then move everyone down to the beach level for the reception, we can easily accommodate 400 guests." Denise, the wedding planner, made enthusiastic notes on her tablet. "The flow is perfect. Cocktail hour on the upper deck during sunset, dinner service on the lower terrace, and dancing right on the beach. It's absolutely stunning. I knew this property would be perfect the moment I decided to sell it." Melissa's voice carried that particular tone of satisfaction she got when things went her way. "The buyer is getting an incredible deal at 3.2 million, and we're getting the wedding venue of my dreams plus enough left over to completely fund the honeymoon and our first year of marriage." I took a sip of my coffee, saying nothing. The oceanfront breeze came through the open balcony doors, carrying the salt air I'd woken up to for the past 8 years. Denise scrolled through her tablet. "Now I've reached out to the caterers you wanted. Coastal Elegance can definitely handle 400 guests, but they need a 50% deposit by next week. That's roughly 45,000. Not a problem." Melissa pulled out her phone, showing Denise a spreadsheet. "Look, I've got the entire sale proceeds allocated. Once the property closes in 3 weeks, we'll have 3.2 million. After closing costs and the agent's commission, we're looking at about 2.9 million net." My mother Sandra emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of pastries she'd picked up on her way here. "Melissa, sweetheart, did you show Denise the flowers you wanted?" "Not yet, Mom. We're still working through the venue logistics." Melissa accepted a croissant absently, her attention fixed on her planning documents. "Denise, I want the ceremony to start exactly at 6:30, so we catch the golden hour for photos. The photographer I hired is the same one who shot the Richardson wedding last summer. Do you remember those photos? They went viral." "I remember." Denise smiled. "You'll get the same quality." "Now about the reception dinner. You mentioned you wanted a 5-course meal with wine pairings." "Absolutely. Only the best for our guests. They're coming from all over the country, some from Europe. This needs to be unforgettable." I walked over to the windows, looking out at the private beach access that had been one of the property's main features when it was purchased back in 2014. The wooden stairs leading down to the sand had been replaced twice due to storm damage. I'd handled both replacements personally, making sure they met the new coastal building codes. "Alex, you're being awfully quiet over there." My mother's voice had that edge to it, the one that suggested my silence was somehow a character flaw. "Don't you have any opinions about your sister's wedding? It sounds like you have everything planned out." Melissa rolled her eyes. "That's Alex for you. No enthusiasm for anything. Honestly, I don't know what you do with your time, just wandering around this big house like a ghost." "I work here. Remote freelancing or whatever isn't a real job, Alex." My mother set down the pastry tray, with more force than necessary. "Your sister is building a real life, marriage, career, stability. You should take notes." Denise looked slightly uncomfortable, focusing very intently on her tablet. Professional wedding planners probably saw a lot of family dynamics, but I could tell she wasn't expecting to walk into this particular situation. "Anyway," Melissa continued, turning back to Denise, "the band I want is the Shorebreak Collective. They played at the Governor's Mansion fundraiser last year. Their rate is 30,000 for the evening, but they're worth every penny. I'll reach out to them today." Denise made another note. "What about accommodations for out-of-town guests? Do you want me to arrange hotel blocks?" "That's the beautiful part. We won't need to. My fiancé David's family owns the Sandcastle Resort about 15 minutes down the coast. They're giving us preferential rates, basically at cost. I'm thinking we can host a welcome dinner there the night before, then everyone can shuttle over here for the actual wedding day. That's incredibly convenient. David and I have been very strategic about planning this." Melissa's smile was self-satisfied. "When you're building a real future, you think about these details. You make smart financial decisions." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my attorney James Sullivan. "Title company completed their search. You should expect a call this afternoon. Everything is exactly as we documented." I typed back a quick acknowledgement and pocketed the phone. "Who was that?" My mother asked sharply. "You're not making plans to disappear again, are you? This is your sister's wedding planning session. The least you could do is be present." "I'm standing right here, Mom. Physically maybe, but you've always been somewhere else mentally. Never engaged with the family, never participating in anything important." Melissa jumped back into the conversation with Denise. For the flowers, I'm thinking all white and cream, roses, peonies, hydrangeas, very classic, very elegant. The arrangements need to be substantial because we're working with such a large space. I'm estimating about 60,000 for florals. Denise's fingers moved across her tablet. That's reasonable for the scale you're describing. 400 guests, ceremony and reception flowers, plus I assume you want arrangements in the house for the getting ready photos. Definitely. The bridal suite. Melissa gestured toward the master bedroom on the second floor. Needs to look like something from a magazine spread. This whole day is going to be documented professionally, and I want every single shot to be perfect. Of course, now about timeline. You said the closing is in 3 weeks. Exactly 3 weeks from tomorrow. The buyers are a couple from Connecticut. Investment property for their retirement. They're paying cash, so there shouldn't be any financing delays. My real estate agent, Patricia Morrison, said it's the smoothest transaction she's handled in years. I almost smiled at that. Patricia Morrison was good at her job, which was exactly why this situation was going to be interesting. And the property is currently in your name? Denise asked, making notes about the timeline. Well, it's family property, Melissa said smoothly. My father purchased it years ago. When he passed away, it became part of the family estate. Since I'm the one who stepped up to handle all the administrative work, it made sense for me to manage the sale. My mother nodded emphatically. Melissa has always been the responsible one, taking care of family business, making sure everything is handled properly. Not everyone in this family can say the same. The implication hung in the air like the salt spray outside. Denise cleared her throat diplomatically. Well, as long as the legal aspects are clear, we can move forward with confidence. Now, you mentioned wanting specialty linens for the dinner service. Yes, I saw these incredible custom linens at a wedding in Charleston. Ivory with hand-embroidered edges. The company is based in New York, and they're expensive, but for 400 guests, we're looking at maybe 20,000 for the full setup. I did the math in my head. Caterers, band, flowers, linens. Melissa was already over 200,000 in planned expenses, and she hadn't even mentioned the photographer, videographer, invitations or the dress. My mother poured herself coffee from the carafe on the side table. Melissa, don't forget you wanted that signature cocktail program. What was the name of that mixologist? Julian Reeves. He creates custom cocktail experiences. For 400 guests, with a full open bar, plus his specialty creations, we're looking at about 35,000. Denise's expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught the slight widening of her eyes. She'd probably planned plenty of expensive weddings, but Melissa was approaching luxury levels that required serious funding. Your budget is quite generous, Denise said carefully. Just to make sure we're aligned, you're comfortable with expenditures approaching 300,000 or more? Absolutely. Melissa pulled up another spreadsheet on her phone. Look, after the property sale closes, and we handle closing costs, we'll net about 2.9 million. 300,000 for the wedding is roughly 10%. That leaves us with 2.6 million for the honeymoon, which we're budgeting at 100,000 for a month in French Polynesia, and then the rest goes into investments and our first home purchase. Melissa has always been brilliant with money, my mother added. She's a financial analyst, you know. She handles investment portfolios for high net worth clients. This wedding might seem extravagant, but it's all carefully calculated. I watched a pelican dive into the surf beyond the windows. The beach had been unusually calm this week, the late spring weather perfect and clear. Denise was reviewing her notes. Okay, so we have venue, which is here, at no additional cost since you own the property. Caterers at 45,000, band at 30,000, florals at 60,000, linens at 20,000, bartending and beverages at 35,000. That's 190,000 before we discuss photography, videography, invitations, rentals for chairs and tables, lighting design, the cake, welcome dinner costs, day of coordination fees, marriage license, officiant, rehearsal dinner, and your dress. The dress is already handled. Vera Wang, purchased last month, 15,000. Photography and videography package is another 25,000. Invitations, programs and paper goods will be about 8,000 through this boutique studio I found. The cake is coming from the same bakery that did Governor Marshall's daughter's wedding, 12,000 for the design I want. Melissa was clearly enjoying herself. Rentals for the tables, chairs and tenting for the beach portion will be about 30,000. Lighting design, I want those bistro lights strung across the entire beach section plus uplighting for the house. That's another 15,000. The numbers kept climbing. I'd stopped tracking the total, but it was well north of 300,000 at this point. And you're confident the property sale will close on schedule? Denise asked, probably doing her own mental math about deposit schedules and vendor commitments. Absolutely certain. The buyers had their inspection 2 weeks ago. Everything came back clean. They waived the appraisal because they're paying cash and don't need financing. We're just waiting on the title search to complete, which is routine, and then we close. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from an unknown number with a local area code. I glanced at the screen. "Excuse me," I said quietly, stepping out onto the upper deck to take the call. "Is this Alex Morrison?" "Speaking. This is Catherine Vance, from Coastal Title and Escrow. I'm the title officer assigned to the property transaction at 2847 Ocean Vista Drive. Do you have a few minutes to discuss some findings from our title search?" "I do." "Excellent. I also have Patricia Morrison from Lighthouse Realty on the line." "Patricia, are you there?" "I'm here." Patricia's voice was professional, but carried an undertone of confusion. "Catherine, you said there was an irregularity with the title." "Not an irregularity exactly," Catherine said carefully. "More of a clarification needed. Our title search has revealed that the property at 2847 Ocean Vista Drive is not held in the name of Melissa Morrison, as indicated on the listing agreement." Silence on the line. "I'm sorry, what?" Patricia's professional veneer cracked slightly. "Melissa provided me with documentation showing she was the legal representative of the estate that owns the property." "Yes, I have copies of those documents here. They show that Robert Morrison, who passed away in 2022, did have an estate that went through probate. Several properties were divided among his heirs through that estate." "Right," Patricia said. "That's what Melissa explained to me. However, 2847 Ocean Vista Drive was not part of that probate estate. Our records show that the property was transferred into an irrevocable trust in 2016, 6 years before Mr. Morrison's death." Another pause. "A trust?" Patricia's tone shifted. "What kind of trust?" "The Robert Morrison Family Trust, established March 2016. The property was deeded to the trust at that time, with Alex Morrison named as the sole beneficiary and current legal owner." Through the glass doors, I could see Melissa and Denise still deep in conversation, my mother showing them something on her phone, probably photos of flower arrangements she'd saved. "Alex Morrison," Patricia repeated. "And I'm Alex Morrison," I said. "We met briefly at the property last week." "Oh." Patricia's voice carried recognition now. "You were there when I did the walkthrough with Melissa. You were sitting on the deck." "That's correct," Catherine continued in her professional tone. "Mr. Morrison, according to our records, you have been the legal owner of this property since the trust was established in 2016. The property taxes, insurance and all maintenance costs have been paid from accounts associated with your name. Is this your understanding as well?" "Yes, that's accurate." "I see." Patricia's voice was tight now. "Mr. Morrison, were you aware that your sister was attempting to sell this property?" "I was present when you and she discussed the listing details." "Yes, and you didn't mention that you were the actual owner. You were speaking with Melissa. I assumed she had done her due diligence before engaging your services." Catherine jumped back in. "Mr. Morrison, I need to ask directly, do you authorize the sale of this property?" "No, I do not." The words hung in the air for a moment. Patricia spoke next, her voice strained. "Mr. Morrison, do you understand that your sister has accepted an offer on this property, that there are buyers who have committed significant funds, based on the representation that she had the legal authority to sell?" "I understand that my sister may have created that impression, yes. But I never signed any listing agreement, any purchase contract, or any authorization for sale. Because I never intended to sell the property. Patricia stopped herself. "Catherine, what's the legal standing here?" "The legal standing is clear," Catherine said. "Only the legal owner can authorize the sale of a property. In this case, that's Alex Morrison. Without his signature on the listing agreement and the purchase contract, there is no valid agreement to sell." "What about the buyers?" Patricia asked. "They've put down earnest money. They've arranged their affairs to purchase this property. The earnest money will be returned," Catherine said. "As for their arrangements, that's unfortunate, but it doesn't change the legal reality. The person who accepted their offer didn't have the legal authority to do so." Through the window, I saw Melissa throw her head back, laughing at something Denise said. She looked radiant, happy, completely unaware that her carefully constructed plans were disintegrating. "Morrison," Catherine continued, "I'll be sending you the complete title report via email within the hour. You should also know that attempting to sell property without legal authority could potentially constitute fraud, depending on the circumstances. You may want to consult with your attorney. I will. Thank you, Catherine. Patricia, I'll send you the title report as well. I'm very sorry for this situation. Not your fault, Patricia said, though her tone suggested she was already thinking about the difficult conversations ahead. You're just doing your job. Mr. Morrison, we'll need to discuss this further. Of course, I'm at the property now. If you'd like to come by, I'll be there in 20 minutes. After we ended the call, I stood on the deck for a moment, listening to the waves. Inside, Melissa was now showing Denise photos of the designer shoes she'd ordered to go with her dress. My mother was talking about arranging hair and makeup trials. I walked back inside quietly, returning to my spot by the windows. Everything okay? My mother asked, her tone making it clear she didn't really care about the answer. Patricia Morrison is on her way over. She needs to discuss something about the property sale. Melissa barely looked up from her phone. Probably just needs another signature or something. David and I are supposed to meet with the wedding officiant this afternoon, so hopefully this doesn't take long. I'm sure it won't take too long, I said. Denise checked her watch. Actually, I should probably wrap up soon as well. Melissa, I think we've covered all the major elements for today. I'll put together a comprehensive proposal, with timeline and budget breakdown, and we can schedule our next meeting for early next week. Perfect. Melissa stood, shaking Denise's hand. Thank you so much for coming out here. I know it's a bit of a drive from the city. It's absolutely worth it for a venue like this. The photos from your wedding are going to be spectacular. As Denise packed up her materials, my mother moved to the kitchen to make more coffee. Melissa pulled out her phone, texting rapidly, probably updating David on the planning session. You know, Alex, Melissa said without looking up from her screen, you could at least try to be happy for me. This is one of the biggest days of my life, and you're acting like you're at a funeral. I'm not unhappy for you. You're not anything. You're just here, taking up space in this huge house that you don't even appreciate. She gestured around the great room. Do you have any idea what some people would do to have a place like this? And you just drift around like it doesn't matter. I appreciate it more than you know, right? That's why you live here alone, doing who knows what, contributing nothing to the family. Meanwhile, I'm trying to build something real, a marriage, a future, a life that actually matters. My mother returned with fresh coffee. Melissa's right, Alex. You've had every opportunity in the world, and you've squandered all of them. Your sister is showing you what ambition and dedication look like. The sound of tires on the gravel driveway interrupted whatever I might have said next. Through the window, I saw Patricia Morrison's silver Mercedes pulling up to the house. That was fast, Melissa said. She must have been nearby. Patricia walked up to the front door with purpose, her expression carefully neutral. I opened the door before she could knock. Patricia, come in. Thank you. She stepped inside, her eyes taking in the room. Melissa and my mother by the kitchen counter, me standing near the door, the remnants of the wedding planning session still visible in scattered papers and coffee cups. Patricia, hi. Melissa's smile was bright. What do you need? More paperwork. Patricia set her leather portfolio on the entry table. Melissa, we need to talk about the sale of this property. Sure, what about it? The buyers are still committed, right? I know the closing is 3 weeks out, but everything's on track, isn't it? The title search came back. Great. One more thing checked off the list. Melissa. Patricia's tone was gentle but firm. The title search revealed that you are not the legal owner of this property. The room went completely silent. Even my mother froze mid-sip of her coffee. What are you talking about? Melissa's smile faltered. Of course I'm the owner. Well, the family is. The estate. The property was never part of your father's estate, Patricia interrupted. It was placed in an irrevocable trust in 2016, with Alex as the sole beneficiary and legal owner. All eyes turned to me. That's impossible, my mother said flatly. Robert would have told us if he'd done something like that. He did tell me, I said quietly, when he established the trust. Melissa's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, and then hardening into anger. No. That's not right. Dad left everything to be divided equally among family. The will said. The will divided the assets that were part of the probate estate. Patricia explained. This property was not part of that estate because it had already been transferred to the trust years earlier. But I've been managing this property. I have keys. I've been showing it to potential buyers. I accepted an offer. You have keys because Alex allowed family access, Patricia said. But having keys doesn't make you the owner. And accepting an offer on property you don't own is, she paused delicately, problematic. My mother's coffee cup hit the counter with a sharp crack. Alex, what is going on? What did you do? I didn't do anything, Mom. Dad put the property in a trust with me as beneficiary 8 years ago. I've been paying the taxes, insurance and maintenance ever since. This has been legally mine for nearly a decade. And you just let us think we could sell it. Melissa's voice rose. You sat there while I planned an entire wedding based on this sale. You let me commit to vendors, to a venue, to everything, knowing it was all based on a lie. You created the lie, Melissa. You told Patricia you had the authority to sell. You told the wedding planner you were selling the property. You never asked me if I wanted to sell. You just assumed you could take what you wanted, because it's family property. No, I said calmly. It's my property, legally, exclusively, and completely. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. I'm very sorry for this situation, but I need to notify the buyers immediately. They'll need to be released from the purchase contract, and their earnest money will be returned. Wait. Melissa held up her hands. Let's everybody just calm down and think about this rationally. Alex, you don't even need this place. You barely use it. Why not just let the sale go through? You'll get a share of the proceeds. Why would I get a share of proceeds from the sale of my own property? Because we're family. Because that's what families do. They help each other. Is that what we were doing yesterday when you told the wedding planner I was just a ghost drifting around the house? When Mom said I was squandering every opportunity, that was family helping family. My mother's face flushed. Don't you dare turn this around. We're talking about your deception. What deception, Mom? I've owned this property for 8 years. I've never hidden that fact. I've paid every bill, handled every repair, dealt with every storm, every insurance claim, every property tax increase. You all just never bothered to ask who was actually doing those things. Melissa pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I need to call David. I need to, oh God. The vendors. I've already put deposits down. The caterers. The band. You put deposits down with money you don't have yet. I pointed out. Based on a sale that was never authorized. How could you do this to me? Melissa's eyes filled with tears. My wedding is in 4 months. 4 months. Do you have any idea how hard it is to plan a wedding? How much work I've put into this? You've put work into planning a wedding at someone else's property without their permission, funded by money from a sale you had no authority to make. That's not work, Melissa. That's fantasy. Patricia cleared her throat. I really do need to make those calls. The buyers, the title company, the closing attorney, they all need to be notified immediately. Fine. Melissa's voice was sharp. Make your calls. But Alex, you and I are going to have a serious conversation about this. About family loyalty and doing the right thing. I agree. We should talk about family loyalty. We can start with the part where you called me a ghost, who contributes nothing, while planning to profit from property I've maintained for years. My mother stepped forward. Alex Morrison, you will not speak to your sister that way. She made a mistake. She made a choice. She chose to assume rather than ask. She chose to believe I was a failure, rather than consider I might have my own life, my own property, my own success. Those were choices, not mistakes. Patricia moved toward the door. I'll make these calls from my car. Melissa, I'll need to discuss next steps with you about notifying vendors and managing the situation with your wedding plans. After Patricia left, the silence in the room was deafening. Melissa stood frozen, her phone still in her hand, face pale. My mother looked between us, her expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been dawning realization. Alex, Melissa's voice was small now. I've already promised 400 people they're coming to an oceanfront wedding. I've already booked everything. What am I supposed to do? What anyone does when plans change, you adapt. Find a different venue. Scale down the guest list. Work within an actual budget, instead of imaginary sale proceeds. But I wanted this. I wanted the perfect wedding, the dream venue, everything I've been planning for. Sometimes we don't get what we want, Melissa, especially when what we want is built on taking from someone else. My mother found her voice again. So that's it. You're just going to keep this enormous property for yourself while your sister's dreams fall apart. My sister's dreams were never my responsibility, Mom. She's a financial analyst who makes good money. She's marrying someone whose family owns a resort. She has resources. She just also had dreams that required spending $2.9 million that belonged to me. It should belong to all of us, my mother said. Your father would have wanted that. If Dad had wanted that, he wouldn't have put the property in an irrevocable trust with only my name on it. He made his wishes very clear, legally and permanently. Melissa sank onto the sofa, her carefully constructed composure crumbling. How am I going to tell David? How am I going to tell his parents? They've been bragging to everyone about our beachfront wedding. You tell them the truth, that you made assumptions without verifying ownership, and those assumptions were wrong. They'll think I'm incompetent. Then maybe you should have been more competent. The words were harsh, but I was done softening the edges of reality for people who'd spent years refusing to see me clearly. My phone rang. James Sullivan, my attorney. I need to take this, I said, walking back out to the deck. Alex, I just heard from the title company, James said. I take it things are getting interesting. You could say that. How are you holding up? Better than expected, actually. Good. Because you should know that attempting to sell property without authority could potentially expose your sister to legal liability. The buyers could potentially sue for damages if they've incurred costs based on the fraudulent sale agreement. I don't think it'll come to that. They're paying cash, so no financing costs. Their earnest money will be returned. They'll be disappointed, but probably not damaged. Still, your sister should probably consult with an attorney. And Alex, you know she might try to contest the trust. On what grounds? Undue influence, lack of capacity, any number of things people argue when they don't like how assets were distributed. Most of those challenges fail, especially with a trust that's 8 years old and has been consistently maintained. But it doesn't stop people from trying. Let her try. The trust was established when Dad was in perfect health, 3 years before his diagnosis. He was working full-time, managing his business, completely competent. And I have 8 years of documentation showing consistent ownership and maintenance, just preparing you for the possibility. After we ended the call, I stood watching the ocean for a long moment before going back inside. Melissa and my mother were sitting together on the sofa, Melissa crying, while my mother rubbed her back. They looked up when I entered, both faces showing the same expression, betrayal mixed with anger. I hope you're satisfied, my mother said coldly. You've ruined your sister's wedding. I haven't ruined anything. Melissa's wedding can still happen. It just won't be here, and it won't be funded by the sale of my property. You're being incredibly selfish, Alex. Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally standing up for myself after years of being treated like I don't matter. Melissa wiped her eyes. Fine. Keep your precious property, but don't expect to be part of this family anymore. Don't expect to be invited to the wedding, or to family gatherings, or to anything. You've made your choice. I made my choice 8 years ago when I accepted responsibility for this property. You're the one making a choice now, to cut me out because I won't give you what you want. What else would you call this? You're choosing property over family. No, Melissa, I'm choosing to protect what's mine from family members who see me as an obstacle rather than a person. There's a difference. My mother stood, gathering her purse. Come on, Melissa, we don't need to stay here and listen to this. We'll figure out your wedding plans together, without any help from Alex. They headed for the door, Melissa pausing at the threshold to look back at me. I really thought you were better than this. I thought the same about you, I replied quietly. After they left, the house settled into profound silence, broken only by the distant sound of waves and seabirds. I walked through the great room, out to the deck, down the stairs to the beach. The sand was warm under my feet, the water cool when it rushed over my ankles. This beach, this property, had been my sanctuary for 8 years. My father had understood that I needed roots, even if those roots looked different from what the rest of the family expected. My phone buzzed with messages over the next few hours. Patricia Morrison confirming the buyers had been notified, and were disappointed, but understanding. James Sullivan forwarding the complete title report showing my clear ownership. And then, as evening approached, a message from a number I didn't recognize. This is David, Melissa's fiancé. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we talk? I called the number. David. This is Alex. Alex, thanks for calling back. His voice was calm, measured. Melissa told me what happened with the property situation. I imagine she did. Look, I know this is complicated, and feelings are running high, but I wanted to reach out directly, one reasonable person to another. Is there any way we could work something out? Maybe you could let us use the property for the wedding, and we could compensate you for it. Or we could still proceed with the sale, and you could keep a larger percentage. David, The property isn't for sale, not for any percentage. I understand you're upset about how this was handled. I'm not upset. I'm just clear about what's mine, and what I'm willing to do with it. But you don't even use the full property, right? Melissa said you mostly stay in one room, work remotely. Why not let it benefit the whole family? Because it's mine. Because I've maintained it. Because my father wanted me to have it. Those are sufficient reasons. Come on, man. This is Melissa's dream wedding we're talking about. Melissa's dreams are not my responsibility, especially when those dreams involved selling my property without my permission. His tone hardened slightly. You know this is going to cause permanent damage to your relationship with your family, right? The relationship was already damaged, David. I was just the only one who didn't realize it until my family tried to steal from me. That's a pretty harsh interpretation, is it? What would you call attempting to sell someone's property without their knowledge or consent? Silence on the line. Look, David tried again. Melissa made a mistake. She genuinely thought the property was part of the family estate. Can't you find it in yourself to forgive her and move forward together? I can forgive her. I just won't give her my property. So you'd rather keep a house you barely use than help your sister have the wedding she's dreamed about? David, I use this house every single day. I work from here. I live here. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not real. Fine. Then what are we supposed to do about a wedding that's 4 months away with 400 invited guests? Find a different venue. Your family owns a resort, right? Have the wedding there. The resort is booked solid for wedding season. That's why Melissa was so excited about having a private beachfront property. Then find another venue, or postpone the wedding, or scale down the guest list. These are all normal problems that people solve without stealing other people's property. You're really not going to budge on this? No. Another long silence. You know what, Alex? Melissa was right about you. You are selfish. Family is supposed to help each other, and you're choosing to be petty over a house. And you're marrying into a family that taught you it's okay to take what you want if you call it family, helping family. Good luck with that. I ended the call. 3 weeks later, I received a formal legal letter. Melissa was indeed contesting the trust, claiming undue influence, and requesting the court to set aside the trust and distribute the property according to the will's general provisions. James filed a motion to dismiss, attaching 8 years of documentation, tax payments, insurance records, maintenance contracts, utility bills, all in my name. He also included my father's medical records from 2016, showing he was in perfect health when the trust was established, and affidavits from the attorney who had drafted the trust, and 2 witnesses who had been present at the signing. The judge dismissed Melissa's case without even requiring a hearing, noting that the evidence of valid trust creation and consistent ownership was overwhelming. I never heard from Melissa or my mother again directly. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Melissa and David had their wedding at a hotel ballroom in the city, with about 150 guests instead of 400. The photos on social media looked lovely. She seemed happy. I hoped she was. As for me, I'm still here in the oceanfront property my father ensured would always be my home. I've added a dedicated office space, expanded the deck, and planted native sea grasses to help with dune stabilization. Every morning, I watch the sunrise over the Atlantic from windows that frame the view my father wanted me to have. Some people might call me selfish for keeping it. I call it honoring my father's wishes and protecting what's mine. The waves keep rolling in, constant and eternal, and I'm still here, in my home, exactly where I belong. The coastal wind carried salt spray through the open windows of the beach house as my sister Victoria stood in the center of the living room, gesturing dramatically to the real estate agent. Her diamond engagement ring caught the afternoon sunlight, throwing prismatic patterns across the weathered hardwood floors. As you can see, this property has been completely neglected, Victoria said, her voice dripping with practiced concern. Our family has tried to maintain it, but honestly, it's been such a burden. The agent, a polished woman named Mrs. Henderson, nodded as she made notes on her tablet. The location is incredible. Oceanfront properties in this area are listing for well over $3 million. I sat in the corner armchair near the bay window, the same spot where I'd spent countless mornings watching the sunrise over the Atlantic. My coffee had gone cold in my hands, but I didn't move. I just watched. 3 million. My mother's voice rose with excitement as she emerged from the kitchen. Victoria, did you hear that? I told you this would be worth it, Mom. Victoria beamed, linking arms with her fiancé, Brandon, who'd been taking photos of the ocean view. This sale is going to transform everything. My brother-in-law to be lowered his phone. With that kind of money, we can upgrade the wedding venue to the Grand Coastal Resort, the one with the infinity pool overlooking the marina. And the honeymoon in Bora Bora, Victoria added, practically glowing. First class, overwater bungalow, the works. Mrs. Henderson smiled professionally. Before we proceed with the listing, I'll need to verify some documents. Who currently holds the title? Our father purchased this property back in 1998, Victoria said smoothly, producing a folder from her designer handbag. He passed away 2 years ago. The estate was divided among the family. I took a slow sip of my cold coffee. The lie was so confident, so complete, that even I almost admired the performance. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Henderson said. Do you have the death certificate and estate documents? Right here. Victoria handed over several papers. Everything was handled through probate. It's all legal and documented. My mother moved closer to the agent. The thing is, our youngest, she gestured vaguely in my direction, without actually looking at me, has been squatting here on and off, making a mess, never paying utilities, treating it like a free vacation spot. I see. Mrs. Henderson's expression became more businesslike. Is the squatter situation resolved? That could complicate the sale. Oh, don't worry about that. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Jordan barely comes here anymore. Half the time we don't even know where Jordan is. Probably couch surfing with friends or whatever. Brandon snorted, living that minimalist lifestyle. No real job, no real home, just drifting around. So bohemian, my mother said with a tight smile. We've tried to help, but you can't force someone to grow up. I set my coffee cup down on the side table with a soft click. The sound seemed loud in the sudden silence, and 3 pairs of eyes briefly flickered toward me before dismissing me again. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. Well, if there are no ownership disputes, we can move forward. I'll need to run a title search, of course. Standard procedure. It should only take a few days. Perfect. Victoria practically vibrated with excitement. How soon can we list? Assuming the title comes back clean, we could have this on the market by next week. Mrs. Henderson walked to the windows, assessing the view. Properties like this don't stay available long. I'd expect multiple offers within the first month. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen. A message from my attorney, confirming our meeting scheduled for Friday. I typed a brief response and pocketed the phone. Mom, can you believe this is actually happening? Victoria grabbed my mother's hands. After everything we've been through, we finally have something good coming our way. You deserve it, sweetheart. My mother's eyes glistened with tears. Your father would be so proud of how you've stepped up to handle family responsibilities. The irony was so thick, I could taste it, like the salt air that filled every corner of this house. Brandon moved to stand beside Victoria, wrapping an arm around her waist. We should start planning how to stage the house for showings. Maybe hire a professional cleaning crew. Get rid of all this old furniture. Definitely. Victoria surveyed the room with barely concealed disdain. Most of this stuff is probably from the 90s anyway. Buyers want modern, not nostalgic. Mrs. Henderson made more notes. I can recommend some excellent staging companies. They work miracles with dated properties. This house isn't dated, I said quietly, my first word since everyone had arrived. It's classic coastal architecture. The exposed beams are original cypress. The floors are heart pine. Irreplaceable now. Victoria rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. Jordan, the architecture expert. What do you know about real estate value? Probably more than you'd think. Right. She turned back to Mrs. Henderson. As you can see, there's some emotional attachment here, but business is business. Jordan will just have to accept that this property needs to serve the family's greater good. My mother nodded emphatically. Victoria and Brandon are starting their lives together. They need this. What does Jordan need it for? Occasional weekend getaways. The utilities alone are astronomical, Victoria added. Someone has to pay them, and it's not like Jordan contributes anything. I almost laughed. The utilities were auto-drafted from my business account every month, and had been for the past 5 years. But why introduce facts into their carefully constructed narrative? Mrs. Henderson's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Excuse me, I need to take this. Title company. She stepped onto the deck, her voice becoming muffled through the glass doors. Victoria immediately turned to Brandon, with a squeal of delight. This is really happening. Can you imagine? The Grand Coastal Resort. And that's just the beginning, Brandon said. With our share of the sale, we could buy a condo in the city, something modern with amenities. Your share? I asked, genuinely curious about their math. Victoria's expression hardened. The property belongs to the family. After Mom takes her portion, Brandon and I will split the rest with you. You'll probably get enough for a security deposit somewhere. How generous. Don't start with the attitude, Jordan. My mother's voice took on that familiar edge. We're being more than fair, considering you've contributed nothing to this family. Nothing. The word hung in the air. Name one thing, Victoria challenged. One significant contribution you've made. One time you've helped with family expenses or responsibilities. I could have listed dozens. The property taxes I'd paid, the insurance premiums, the complete roof replacement after the hurricane, the foundation work, the new HVAC system, the legal fees when the county tried to rezone the coastline, the thousands of hours of maintenance and repairs. But I didn't. I just shrugged. That's what I thought. Victoria's voice dripped with vindication. All you do is take. Well, not anymore. This property is going to do some good for people who actually deserve it. Mrs. Henderson returned from the deck, her expression neutral, but somehow different. That was the title company. They're pulling the records now. Should have preliminary results by tomorrow morning. Excellent. Victoria clapped her hands together. Brandon, we should go look at the resort today. See if they have availability for next June. June is peak season. My mother worried. Will they have the terrace available? For $3 million worth of wedding budget, they'll make it available. Victoria linked arms with Brandon again. Mrs. Henderson, you'll call us the moment the title search is complete. Absolutely. I'll need all owners to be present for the listing agreement signing. Owners? My mother frowned. It's just Victoria and myself. Jordan isn't technically an owner. Well, let's see what the title search says. Mrs. Henderson's smile was professionally ambiguous. Sometimes estate divisions can be complex. There's nothing complex about our situation, Victoria said firmly. Dad's will was very clear. Everything was split between his wife and his responsible adult children. I stood up, stretching slightly. I should get going. I have a meeting across town. Don't you want to hear more about the sale? My mother's tone suggested this was somehow a test of my character. I'm sure you'll fill me in on anything important. Victoria laughed. Anything important? Jordan, this is the most important thing happening in this family. But sure, go ahead and run off to whatever you do all day. I grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door. Mrs. Henderson, it was nice meeting you. I'm sure we'll talk soon. The agent gave me an appraising look, the kind that suggested she'd seen enough family dynamics to recognize when something didn't add up. I look forward to it. As I walked to my car, I could hear Victoria's voice carrying through the open windows, already planning furniture removal schedules and discussing commission rates. The sound faded as I drove away from the beach, toward the cluster of office buildings that marked the commercial district. My attorney's office was in a renovated historic building downtown. Margaret Chen had been my lawyer for 7 years, handling everything from business contracts to the trust documents my father had established long before his death. Jordan, she greeted me in the lobby. Right on time. Come on back. Her office overlooked the harbor, boats bobbing gently in their slips. Margaret gestured to the familiar leather chair across from her desk. I got your message about the property situation. Your sister is attempting to sell. Attempting is the right word. She's got a real estate agent, a buyer lined up, and a fantasy wedding budget all planned out. Margaret's expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes. And the title search, being processed as we speak, should be complete by tomorrow, which means by tomorrow afternoon, you'll be getting some very interesting phone calls. Margaret pulled up a file on her computer. Let's review the trust documents one more time. Make sure everything is airtight. For the next hour we went through every detail of the irrevocable trust my father had established in 2015, 3 years before his death. The trust that named me as the sole beneficiary of the beach property. The trust that had been properly filed, recorded, and maintained through every legal channel required by state law. Your father was very specific about his wishes, Margaret said, highlighting a particular clause. He wanted to ensure that the property would be protected for you, regardless of any family pressures or circumstances. He knew Victoria would do something like this. He knew families could be complicated, especially around valuable assets. Margaret closed the file. The trust is ironclad. Your sister has no legal claim to the property whatsoever. Neither does your mother. They think they're selling it for $3 million. They can think whatever they want. The title search will show you as the sole legal owner through the trust. Any attempted sale without your signature would be void. I leaned back in the chair, watching the boats in the harbor. Victoria's planning her dream wedding with money she doesn't have. That's unfortunate, but it's not your responsibility. You didn't create this situation, Jordan. She did, by assuming rather than verifying. My mother will say I should just give them the property, for family, and you're free to make that choice if you want, but it would require you to voluntarily transfer ownership, and frankly, given their behavior, I'd advise strongly against it. Margaret's expression softened. I know this isn't easy. Family conflicts never are. They think I'm a failure. No job, no home, just drifting through life. You run a successful remote consulting business, you've maintained that property impeccably, and you've built a life that works for you. Their perception doesn't change reality. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Mom and I are making a list of everything that needs to be thrown out of the beach house. Do you have anything there you actually care about, or can we just clear it all? I showed Margaret the message. She shook her head. They're going to be very surprised. Should I warn them? That's entirely your call. Legally, you don't owe them advance notice. The title search will speak for itself. I thought about it for a moment, then typed back. I care about all of it. Don't throw anything away. Victoria's response came within seconds. Fine, but you need to come get your stuff before the staging crew arrives next week. We're not running a storage facility for your beach bum lifestyle. Margaret glanced at the exchange. For what it's worth, you're handling this with remarkable patience. My father taught me that sometimes the best response is no response at all. Just let the truth reveal itself. Wise man. Margaret printed out several documents and slid them across the desk. These are copies of the trust, the deed, and the tax payment records for the past 5 years. You might want to have them handy. I folded the papers and tucked them into my jacket pocket. Thank you, Margaret, for everything. That's what you pay me for. Though I have to admit, I'm curious to see how this plays out. You and me both. The next morning, I was sitting on the deck of the beach house, watching pelicans dive for fish in the surf, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Jordan Matthews speaking? This is David Sung, from Coastal Title and Escrow. I'm calling regarding the property at 847 Ocean Vista Drive. Are you available to discuss some findings from our title search? I am. Excellent. I've also got Mrs. Henderson from Premier Coastal Realty on the line. We encountered some unexpected results in the property records. Mrs. Henderson's voice joined the call. Mr. Matthews, I apologize for the confusion, but it appears there may have been a misunderstanding about the property ownership. What kind of misunderstanding? I kept my tone neutral. David cleared his throat. Our search shows that the property is held in an irrevocable trust established in 2015 by Robert Matthews. The sole beneficiary and current legal owner is listed as Jordan Lee Matthews. Is that you? It is. Silence on the line for a beat. Mrs. Henderson spoke carefully. Mr. Matthews, when we met yesterday, your sister indicated that she had legal authority to sell the property as part of an estate division. My sister was mistaken. I see. More silence. And the documents she provided regarding the estate. My father's estate did go through probate. The will divided most of his assets among family members, but the beach house wasn't part of the probate estate, because it had already been transferred into the trust years earlier. David's keyboard clicked in the background. That's consistent with what we're seeing in the records. The trust transfer was filed and recorded in 2015, well before Mr. Robert Matthews' death in 2023. Mrs. Henderson's voice took on a professional chill. Mr. Matthews, are you saying that your sister and mother have no ownership claim to this property at all? That's correct, and you were present during our entire conversation yesterday. I was. Why didn't you mention this? You didn't ask me anything. You spoke with Victoria. I paused. I assumed she'd done her due diligence before hiring a real estate agent. David jumped in, clearly trying to de-escalate. Mr. Matthews, do you have any intention of selling the property? No. I understand, Mrs. Henderson. I'll send you the complete title report, but the short version is that Jordan Matthews is the sole owner. Any sale would require only his signature, and no one else's. Mrs. Henderson's sigh was audible. Thank you, David. Mr. Matthews, I apologize for the confusion. I'll be contacting your sister to inform her that we cannot proceed with the listing. I appreciate your professionalism, I said. After we ended the call, I sat in the quiet morning, waiting. It took exactly 12 minutes. My phone exploded with incoming calls. Victoria. Mom. Victoria. Again. A text from Brandon. More calls from Victoria. I let them go to voicemail. Finally, a text from Victoria appeared. Call me right now. What did you do? I typed back. I didn't do anything. I've been sitting on my deck all morning. The agent called. She says the property is in your name, that you own it. That's impossible. It's not impossible. It's documented fact. Dad put the beach house in a trust for me 7 years ago. My phone rang again. This time I answered. You knew. Victoria's scream probably could have been heard without the phone. You sat there yesterday, and let us plan everything, knowing it was all a lie. I didn't lie. You did. What are you talking about? You told Mrs. Henderson that you had authority to sell the property. You showed her estate documents that were irrelevant. You presented yourself as the owner. I just sat in the corner drinking coffee. You should have said something. Why? You were very clear that I contribute nothing to this family, and know nothing about real estate. Why would my opinion matter? I could hear my mother's voice in the background, high-pitched and frantic. Victoria was apparently on speakerphone. Jordan, this is your mother. This is ridiculous. Your father would never have left that entire property to you alone. He did. In 2015, 3 years before he died. That's impossible. He would have told us. He told me. He said he wanted to make sure I had a stable home base, regardless of what happened with the family dynamics. I paused. Looks like he was pretty smart about predicting those dynamics. Victoria's voice returned, tight with fury. You're going to give us our share. We're family. You just spent the last 24 hours calling me a squatter, a freeloader, and a beach bum with no job and no future. You were planning to throw out all my belongings, and split money that was never yours. Now you want to talk about family. Don't be petty, Jordan. We made a mistake, okay? We thought the property was part of the estate. It's an honest error. An honest error would be checking the actual ownership before hiring a real estate agent. What you did was assume you could take what you wanted. My mother's voice grew louder. Jordan Lee Matthews, you listen to me. That property has been in this family for decades. You cannot just keep it for yourself. Mom, Dad legally transferred it to me 7 years ago. It's been mine longer than I've been an adult. I've paid every bill, every repair, every tax assessment. You want to know what I contribute to the family? Ask the county tax assessor. Ask the insurance company. Ask the roofing contractor, who replaced the entire structure after Hurricane Laura. Silence. You never told us you were paying for those things. My mother said finally, her voice smaller. You never asked. You assumed I was squatting and freeloading. It was easier to believe I was a failure than to actually check the facts. Victoria's voice came back, different now, calculating. Fine. You own the house. We get that. But Mom and I have been maintaining it too. We deserve compensation for our time. When's the last time either of you was here before yesterday? Another silence. Exactly. I stood up, walking to the deck railing. The ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon, the same view my father had loved. The truth is, you didn't care about this property until you realized it was worth money. Now you want to cash in on something you had nothing to do with maintaining or protecting. So that's it. Victoria's voice cracked. You're just going to keep everything and cut us out. I'm going to keep what's legally mine. Yes, just like you were planning to do yesterday when you thought you owned it. This is different. How? No answer. My mother's voice was thick with tears. Jordan, please. Victoria needs this for her wedding. She's your sister. And yesterday she was happy to leave me with enough for a security deposit somewhere. Now that the tables are turned, suddenly I'm supposed to be generous. That's what family does. They help each other. You're right, Mom. Family should help each other. Maybe you should have remembered that before you called me a squatter in my own home. I heard Brandon's voice now, trying to be reasonable. Look, Jordan, let's all calm down. We can work something out. Maybe you could take out a home equity loan. Give us our share that way. My share of what, Brandon? The property you don't own, the money you were never entitled to. The family share, man. Come on. There is no family share. There's my property, which my father gave to me, and which I've maintained and protected for years. That's the beginning and end of the legal reality. Victoria's voice turned vicious. You know what? Fine. Keep your precious beach house. But don't come crying to us when you need help. Don't expect to be invited to family events. Don't think you're walking me down the aisle at my wedding. I wasn't planning to. Have a nice day, Victoria. I ended the call and blocked all 3 numbers. The silence that followed was profound. just the sound of waves and seabirds and wind in the sea oats that grew along the dunes. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Margaret. I assume by now they've been informed. Yes. How are you holding up? Better than expected. Turns out standing up for yourself feels pretty good. It does indeed. Let me know if you need anything. I pocketed my phone and walked down the weathered steps to the beach. The sand was cool under my feet, the morning sun warm on my face. This place, this home had been my sanctuary for years. My father had understood that I needed roots, even if those roots looked different from what the family expected. A week later, I received a certified letter. Inside was a legal document from an attorney I didn't recognize. Victoria and my mother were suing for unjust enrichment and constructive fraud, claiming that my father had been unduly influenced when he created the trust. I forwarded it to Margaret, who called me within the hour. This is completely without merit, she said flatly. Your father was mentally competent, the trust was properly executed, and there's a 7-year paper trail of you maintaining the property. They don't have a case, they're desperate, they're embarrassed. Your sister apparently told everyone at her engagement party that she was selling a multi-million-dollar beach house. Now she has to explain why that's not happening. That must be uncomfortable. Jordan, this lawsuit is going to cost them legal fees they can't recover. I can file a motion to dismiss, and it will almost certainly be granted. But I want to make sure you understand. This could get uglier before it gets better. I understand. And you're okay with that. I looked around my home office, where I'd built a business that let me work from anywhere, including this beautiful property my father had ensured would always be mine. I'm okay with it. The motion to dismiss was filed 3 weeks later. The judge granted it without even requiring a hearing, citing the clear documentation of the trust, and the lack of any supporting evidence for Victoria's claims. Victoria's attorney withdrew from the case the same day. My mother called from a different number, getting through before I realized who it was. Jordan, please, she said immediately. This has gone too far. Victoria's wedding is in 6 months, and she can't afford the venue she wants. Can't we just talk about this? There's nothing to talk about, Mom. The property is mine. That's not going to change. But you don't even live there full time. You're there maybe half the year. Why do you need such a large house? Because I want it. Because Dad wanted me to have it. Because I've earned it through years of care and maintenance. Take your pick. This is so selfish, Jordan. You know what was selfish, Mom? Trying to sell my property without my permission, calling me a squatter, planning to throw out my belongings. That was selfish. We made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to believe the worst about me. You chose to assume rather than ask. You chose to value Victoria's wedding over any relationship with me. Those were choices, not mistakes. So you're just going to cut off your family over a house? No, Mom. You cut me off years ago. You just didn't realize it until there was something you wanted from me. She was crying now. Please, Jordan. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Can't we move past this? Moving past it would require you to actually see me as a person, not as an obstacle to what you want. When you're ready to do that, give me a call. I hung up gently this time. 6 months later, I saw Victoria's wedding photos on social media. They'd gotten married at a small venue, nothing like the grand coastal resort she'd planned. The pictures were lovely though. She looked happy. I hoped she was. I also noticed I wasn't in any of the photos, not even the extended family shots. It was like I'd been erased. That was fine. I'd built my own life, my own family of friends and colleagues, who valued me for who I actually was, not what they could get from me. The beach house stood solid against the Atlantic storms, just as my father had known it would. And I stood solid too, grounded in the truth of who I was and what I'd earned. Some people might call that selfish. I call it self-respect. And every morning when I watch the sunrise from my deck, I thank my father for giving me both the property and the example of how to protect what matters. The waves keep rolling in, constant and unchanging. And I'm still here, in my home, exactly where I belong.